Greetings from Las Vegas. Welcome to the EOG Sports Hour. John Kelly with you on a Monday night. Glad to be representing EOG. The three letters stand for Ion Gaming. EOG.com is a website dedicated to the hearts and minds of sports bettors everywhere. And if it's a Monday night, it must mean that Mike Corrigan is in the house. Mike, always good to join us on Monday evenings. He's a bettor/bookmaker, a veteran bettor/bookmaker. He's been around a long time and at it for nearly 40 years. Mike, good evening and welcome to the program.
Good evening, J.K. It's nice to be back here in Vegas, actually in town here. Got till tomorrow, and it's my usually monthly visit. And I'm sorry I didn't get to the studio tonight, but some business got in the way.
And that happens. And good business for bookmakers, I understand. I know Jay Corrigan of the LVH or Westgate, he told Matt Humans of the Las Vegas Review-Journal that he had the best Sunday morning ever. That covers about 20 years of the bookmaking business. Jay Corrigan did very well on Sunday morning, which means the players took it on the chin. How did you do?
Well, the dogs going, was it 7-2 early or 8-2 or whatever it was? So they're just two favorites won early.
Yes, and only one favorite to the over.
And they didn't have, and that's another key factor, very underrated key factor you just mentioned. This is something that doesn't get talked about in gambling sports talk radio here in Vegas, and I'm glad you brought that up because it's very important and very underrated, that remark. And anyway, I know the dogs won the majority of the games, and there was only two 1:25 start times, so they didn't have a lot of chalk to get out with, although both favorites won in the afternoon. They put a little bit of a dent into the figure. Where things got a little screwy, we can get to it later. I got many stories on how bookmakers got hurt very badly in the Denver game. But we'll get to it down the road here. Very
well. That was the Broncos' victory over the Colts, 31-24 on Sunday night. Boy, the NFL knows how to schedule. NBC asks for that game on Broncos-Colts and pulls it from the regular schedule to have it on Sunday night, featuring Peyton Manning against his old team. And when Peyton Manning plays Andrew Luck, boy, I see a lot of I see a lot of Peyton Manning in Andrew Luck. I love what Luck does. He never quit on his team and battled back to get inside the number. I saw Broncos closing as high as a 9.5-point favorite in that game. I think I saw 9.5, and the Colts snuck in the back door. So 31-24 was the final. Michael, tell us about that game in detail more a bit later in the program. There are two games going, actually one game going at this hour. There were two games on tonight's slate. Detroit bombed the New York Giants at Ford Field 35-14 in the early game on Monday night. This is what the NFL does every opening Monday night. They have two games, schedule a game in the East or Midwest, and then schedule one out West. And
let me stop you right there 1 second. I've been dying to ask that question to a person such as you that has 90% of the answers normally. Why the doubleheader the first Monday? Is that just to remind us the NFL's back?
Because they can, I think, yeah, and the ratings. And
it's not like they're short of viewership, you know.
No, and it's a nice touch. You know what I like about watching NFL football is I like all these standalone contests because, you know, like unlike those 10 games that went at 10 a.m. Pacific, you know, it's hard to keep up with all of them when they're going on simultaneously. Whereas if you get a Thursday night game, you know, you get the two Monday night games, you get the Sunday night game, and virtually, you know, we had two games going on at once, but it's easy to follow two at the same time as opposed to 10 at the same time. So where I'm playing catch up, Mike, is what happened in those 10 a.m. starts yesterday. I know what happened on Thursday night when Seattle bombed Green Bay. I know what happened in these two games tonight, the game on Sunday night. But what's tough is to follow the games that were taking place concurrently.
You know, that's a very good point on these start times. Of course, the NFL has changed the time from 1:05 to 1:15 to now 1:25, both games yesterday. It's a good thing, because they will have 1:05 starts, down, every Sunday also, which really messes the bettors up because they don't know what to do with the 10 games or 7 games, 8 games they play early, and they just don't know what to do if their games are overlapping. This is very tough in a cash and carry business such as Vegas is. When you're on credit, it's a little easier to function, but when you have to stand in line, and buy tickets, and the lines are out the door in Vegas. You got to. It's really tricky because a lot of things happen, as we all know, in the last 2 minutes of any game. No matter what the score may be, the spread, whether it be the total, the second half, or whatever, always seems to come into play, and it's a little tough. Now, I think personally, if I was running the NFL, as I told my friend Carl Peterson, I said, "Make me the boss." That's what Corrigan's favorite line is. I would have everything just start at 1:30. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, I have my reasons. The NFL doesn't want, other than Mr. Christie in New Jersey, he doesn't want. Nobody wants to hear about my reasons, I suppose. But it sure would make it a hell of a lot easier, John, on the players, the bettors, even the fans. There is people that just watch the games for no money.
My suggestion for many years, Mike, I like the idea of the staggered start times. Why start 10 games at 10 a.m.? Why not spread it out over the morning and afternoon? 3 games at 10 a.m., 3 games at 11 a.m., 3 games at noon?
Well, let me tell you something, but since you brought that up, and you came from Chicago in the Midwestern time zone, how old were... Now, I can remember when the games in the Midwest did start at 11 o'clock is that before your time?
Before my time, yes.
Oh, that's embarrassing. But this really did happen. They had 11 o'clock starts, and they had 10 o'clock starts, and they had 1 o'clock. It was very, very regulated. They didn't have any Sunday night game. Everything was Monday night. And, of course, Monday night was a monstrous game because bookmakers would run their weeks on credit through Monday night. So consequently, Monday night was like the biggest thing there is. Now it's Sunday night. Sunday night has become just I hate to use the word catastrophe for bookmakers, but the Sunday night game is so tough to make any money with because of teasers and parlays that are alive all day long that go to the Sunday night game that on both sides where you just can't make any money. You need really a blowout by the dog in order to just for salvation.
You're listening to the EOG Sports Hour. John Kelly with Mike Corrigan talking sports and sports betting. We'll focus on Week 1 in the National Football League, run down all the scores from a gambling perspective. Again, I'm playing a little bit of catch-up. I'm no NFL expert anyway. I've followed the games. I mentioned the one game that went favorite to the over in the 10 a.m. time slot was the Eagles-Jaguars game. That was a wild result. Talk about two halves. Jags up 17-0 at the break, and then lose to the Eagles 34-17 in wild fashion. I
got a story I like. It might come one of my few NFL contributions here of comments about the games themselves. A very good friend of mine, I won't mention his name, his initials are J.K., offered up the Philadelphia Eagles to me as a very good play to win the Eastern Division. So I did make a rather sizable wager that they would win the Eastern Division. They would also, I went over 9 wins, and I rebet it at Chris for the maximum they would take. And they had it at $1.08, which was I saw as high as 150 and 160. And Chris had a hell of a good price on it. So I got very involved. So now there I am on Sunday morning here in Vegas, and I see 7-0 Jacksonville. That's okay. 14-0 wasn't. Okay. And then it's 17-0 at halftime. By that, now I've got myself worked into a total lather. I didn't bet the game yesterday, but of course a few people did and thought they were dead in the water. I did think about making a play on the halftime because I did figure with Philly's offense they could come back and win the second half handily, and they did more than that. It kind of reminded me of the Oregon game on Saturday night.
And, the tie between those two games is the head coach, Chip Kelly, on the sidelines for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Sure.
And before that, he was on the sidelines with the Oregon Ducks. And Chip Kelly kept his head. He said after the game, you have to understand it's a long game. You can't lose your head out there. That's one thing I like to focus on is do these teams, coaches and players, do they show panic or do they show poise? And Chip Kelly's team showed poise in the face of that 17-0 halftime deficit, roared from behind to win, going away 34-17. Fumble return with 1:23 left. helped get the cover for
I think
for
the
everyone.
game was sitting on it. Was it sitting on a 10, John?
Sitting on a 10, yes. Sitting
and
on
then
10.
there's a lot of wasn't there some 10.5 and 11s in that
Yes,
event?
everyone gets the money
Right.
after the fumble return, and the total. Interesting action on the total. I saw numbers high as 53. Our friend Computer Bob went over 52, but the market crashed. I saw numbers in 48.5, 49 in that neighborhood, and went over the closing number of 49. 34-17, the final. Philly defeats Jacksonville, and that was the game that went favorite to the over, and didn't look like the favorite or the over had much of a chance at the half.
But just amazing. I mean, it really was the most amazing game of the day. Well, the Denver game's close to that, too. The way that thing came out, especially with the point spreads and all.
Mm-hmm.
The Philly game, though, but I was bad mouthing this guy's initials that are J.K. You should have heard me when I got like 20 dimes involved here, and I'm in week 1. I got to go through 16 weeks of this.
Well, the beauty of that bet now, you survive with the Eagles in week 1. They come from behind, and the rest of the teams in the NFC East all laid an egg.
They're terrible. And you are right about that, John. That division is just a nightmare. There's just no quality.
Philly could pick up 5. I don't want to say 6 wins, but they could go 5-1 in the NFC East.
Yeah, they could. They should run away with the division. They should end up with. I figure they're going to win. I think they can win like 11 games. I played over 9, and I thought that was a good play considering 9 is only one game away from being 8-8, which is a 500 record in that division. I mean, the division, it just doesn't have any quality. It's a disaster down in Dallas. Worst team they've ever had, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, Jerry Jones, I don't know what's on his mind, because he's usually not quiet about anything. And this is a very, very bad division, and I just can't find any good about it, except for the Eagles. And the Eagles, like you said, this quarterback, you like him a lot. And he proved it last year. They did very well. Was it the middle of last year on into the finish?
Yes, Nick Foles, 27 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions last year. He wasn't perfect yesterday. In fact, some of the struggles the Eagles had came because of Foles' play in the first half. But, LaShawn McCoy is such a valuable player for him. For the Eagles, too. He's just an outstanding back. Led the NFL last season in touches. And so, that's just he had 21 carries, only 74 yards.
They come a little flat, I guess. You wouldn't think they'd be a home opener and all that. Mm-hmm. But then again, Jacksonville is regarded as a very poor team. Is that the team that's owned by the Russian guy?
I'm not sure.
There's some foreigner owns that team. I saw him on 60 Minutes one night.
I know a Russian.
Or that, or I get it mixed up with the New Jersey Nets.
I think that's it. The Nets in the NBA. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Anyways, it was you were severely bad-mouthed. By days then, you were my hero again.
Well, that was good that Philly gets off to the right start and the rest of the division struggling. Jacksonville did lose a couple of key players defensively in that game to head injuries. Linebacker J.T. Thomas, safety Jonathan Cyprian. And always very important, Mike, for handicappers and gamblers to follow the NFL injury report. I think in college, too, it's critical. You've got to know who's in and who's out, especially early in the season, as the market scrambles to assess the importance of the injuries. I think that's one area where the artist has it over the scientist. A lot of the database guys, they're not quite sure how to grade these injuries. And if you're watching the games and you know the value of each player, sometimes you can get an edge over the computer guys.
For the sake of the listeners, do you yourself, being around as long as you have a couple, 2 or 3 different sources for injuries that you would rely on?
Edward Golden did such a nice job with injuries, but I don't think they're available this year. He had a couple of websites that had injury information. The usual suspects, Don Best for years has done a good job in sports options. Of course, some of the best injury information is things you uncover yourself, that isn't out there widely available to the betting marketplace. But what I like, Mike, one of my favorite angles, I like to not so much play games involving players who are out, but players who are hurting. I want to find the guy who's still in but can't go 100%. I mean,
Right.
Sometimes it's tough to do. Sometimes you get dead arms in Major League Baseball. Sometimes in basketball, you'll get guys trying to gut out an injury, where it affects their speed or mobility. Same thing in football. If Cam Newton could not go this week with the rib injury. I like to get involved in games with injuries because I think it's tough for the market to adjust.
Yeah. Just quickly off the subject a second. What was the opening and closing lines on the San Diego game?
San Diego at Pinnacle. Let's see.
Arizona was a small favorite, right?
Yeah. Pinnacle
2.5, 3.
Pinnacle opened -3, -$1.30, and I see a lot of -3, -$1.05 by game
I think
time.
because they just went ahead by 1.
Mm-hmm.
It's 18-17, I think.
Yeah, I see 2:25 on the clock. I don't have the feed, but I've got the sports
Right.
option screen in front of me.
They get that 1-point lead, and unless something funky happens, San Diego's going to be in good shape with a point spread, probably. Especially, like you said, what could happen in the Philly game. I know somebody had a big bet, by the way, on Jacksonville. I know that would take some, which I could never pull the trigger on. He had a big bet. He got 11 or 11.5, the guy did. And so the late touchdown there, I heard him from 60 miles away.
You mentioned the halftime on that game. I almost made a wager on the Eagles at the half. When I saw the Eagles -8.5 in the second half, trailing 17-0, but I'll tell you what kept me away. I hate to say it almost looked too easy, but it looked too easy. Yeah,
I saw 7.5 actually.
You saw 7.5. Wow.
7.5, but that hook is sticking on there like it's damn close to an 8.5 too in a way.
Yeah, yeah. And,
it sounds like there's a difference. It's not a huge difference actually. And I didn't pull the trigger either. I think I had myself so worked up being aggravated with this guy J.K. I wasn't sure really.
But the Eagles had no problem in storming from behind. Is Arizona setting up to go for 2?
No, they went for 1. They were down by 5. They scored and they went ahead 18-17, 2:25 to play, and they missed the conversion. I had my head turned when they did it. They must have gone for 2 because they were down by 5, so
right.
They went ahead, and they missed it, which was everything to the players. It would be, of course, a bad number for bookmakers, and that's something else I want to mention on tonight's show, that the last thing a bookmaker wants to see is a game landing right on the number. That's a total negative for a bookmaker, no matter whether it's Vegas or around the world.
Mm-hmm.
When they land right on the numbers, you can just bet there's wise guys that are buying half points and this and that and shopping numbers, and it's a tough market out there. And I made some discoveries over this weekend that we can get into a little later in the show about just how sharp the current modern-day players really are.
Let's step aside and take a quick time out right here. When we return, more with Mike Corrigan. You're listening to the EOG Sports Hour.
There's no such thing as a sure thing, unless you're talking about Ion Gaming. Ion Gaming is a website dedicated to the hearts and minds of sports bettors everywhere. If you're looking for smart, sophisticated sports handicapping information and insight,
go to EOG.com.
If you're looking for the latest news on the ever-changing landscape of Nevada's race and sportsbook industry,
go to EOG.com.
If you're looking for the most recent developments involving the worldwide sports betting scene with an emphasis on the leading sports books in San Jose, Costa Rica,
go to EOG.com.
And finally, if you're looking to join an online community of sports gamblers where registration is free and the information is priceless,
go to EOG.com.
You get the idea. Why gamble on other sports betting websites when Ion Gaming is a sure thing?
And I love a sure thing.
Hi, this is Rick Alec, president of Sports Options. Sports Options is a sports information tool designed to give sports bettors of all types the necessary edge needed to improve their bottom line. With Sports Options, you'll never lay a bad number again. We provide you with live odds from the leading sports books in the world, from Costa Rica to Curacao, London to Las Vegas, and everywhere in between. Sports Options also provides the fastest and most accurate injury information, lightning-quick score updates, and game analysis from 30-year handicapping veteran Mark Simons. We offer affordable services for players of all levels, starting at just $99 per month. To see which service best fits your needs, you can take advantage of our 7-day free trial. No credit card is needed. Just go to www.sportsoptions.com and click on the free trial link. I'm confident you'll be impressed with our product, and you'll find it the most complete and comprehensive on the market. In fact, if you don't like Sports Options after 30 days, we'll refund you 100% of your subscription costs, no questions asked. Go to sportsoptions.com for all the details or call 702-835-1743, and one of our friendly customer service representatives will be happy to help you. Sports Options, information you can bet on.
And we are back. The EOG Sports Hour, John Kelly with you on a Monday night, joined by veteran bookmaker Mike Corrigan. We're chatting NFL football right now. Quick shout out to a couple of EOG contributors. Want to say hello tonight to Mr. Bowling 300. Boy, did he have a big day today. He's a native Michigander. He's from the Detroit area. Mr. Bowling 300 did a doubleheader today at the Comerica Park in the afternoon and Ford Field at night. They moved that Tigers-Royals game today to the daytime start so they wouldn't have traffic congestion, I guess, in the downtown area for the Tigers and Lions going at the same time. But
I think those stadiums are really close together, aren't they?
Right. In fact, Mr. Bowling 300 posted a picture at Ion Gaming that shows that they're right across the street from one another. So quite the doubleheader for Keith. And the reason his screen name, Mike, is Mr. Bowling 300 is because he has 11 perfect games to his credit.
Whoa.
The guy can roll.
Yeah, this is Billy Wheeler reborn.
And he saw 2 victories by the Detroit teams. The Tigers beat the Royals 9-5. They're in the hunt for an AL wildcard spot and trying to run down the Royals in the division as well. And the Lions look good tonight in that 35-14 victory over the Giants. Eli Manning, that Giants offense, they're breaking in something new, a new coordinator, new system, new signs, and
new offensive line, I think, too.
New offensive line. So real trouble for Eli. Last year, 27 interceptions, and according to EOG contributor Nedro9, he was sacked more than 40 times as well. You can't have both, the interceptions and the sacks. And Eli's, you really got to downgrade what he's doing right now for the New York Giants.
He had a terrible last year. He's had a couple. Eli's won 2 Super Bowls?
Yes.
Which is never, it doesn't happen to anybody. And this is a very uncommon thing. He's already proved himself to be a tremendous commodity, but he doesn't have any supporting cast either. And yet they're in a division that's not, other than Philly. The other 2 teams are a disaster, Dallas and Washington, but the Giants don't have anything. And the Lions just kind of pulled away tonight and won rather handily.
There was a Super Bowl winning quarterback who didn't look good yesterday, Mike, in that Ravens-Bengals game. Joe Flacco threw for 345 yards, but that can be deceptive. Very poor game management at the end of the half by Flacco. He had 8 passes batted down at the line. And Flacco's a big guy on top of it. 3 sacks. He threw 1 interception. His game management, as mentioned, was poor, but the Bengals defeated the Ravens 23-16. The Bengals were up 15-0 at the half and went on to win by 7. I know Boomer Esiason of CBS Sports, he really liked the Bengals going into that game.
Didn't Baltimore take a 16-15 lead or something? Or
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
They rallied.
But it was short-lived, but they did actually rallied. Somebody must have done something right to get the lead, but they couldn't hold it, and they're in serious difficulty. And the Ray Rice thing is just a real ugly scene too.
Yeah, and you wonder how that might affect the Ravens moving forward.
Could be a problem. First of all, they've lost a lot of people in retirement and injuries, this and that. Now this happens, and they thought they had that case settled out until another film broke. And, this guy actually married this woman, the one he beat up in the elevator. I believe he married her.
Okay. And
which is not, I guess, I think it's kind of strange, but then it is it's a bizarre world.
We've seen NFL players, getting a lot of hot water through the years, more so now than ever before, it seems. Maybe it's the media attention, but certainly it's such a violent game. My question, Mike, is always, is it the violent players who are attracted to NFL football, or does the NFL football game make them violent? I'm sure it's a little bit of both, but it's such a violent game out there that
I think it's the second one, the violence. It's that they practice it so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's like being in a prison yard. Not that I would know anything about that, but when you're walking the yard with at the Crossbar Hotel. And they get some very tough gentlemen in those major places. I mean, the NFL reminds me of that a little bit.
And my analogy was going to be war. These guys come back from war with the post-traumatic syndrome and all, and the fact that they're I'm not making excuses for them, because there's a lot of bad behavior, much worse than what Ray Rice did. I mean, I think of Ray Carruth and the murder.
That he got life, didn't he?
Yes, he did. Yep.
Yeah. And actually, I'm not going to say that who was the linebacker for the Baltimore that just retired?
Ray Lewis.
Ray Lewis was involved in an activity. He could have been convicted in his case, but he was well represented, and there was enough reasonable doubt for him to skate off of the problem. But he never would have seen that Super Bowl, because he would have been walking that yard with Carruth.
Mm-hmm. And these players put themselves in a lot of trouble, put themselves in harm's way is what they do, and put themselves in bad positions. And then, of course, the most famous of all, I mentioned Ray Carruth, but O.J. Simpson, though not convicted, it's...
Right, but the whole world feels like, not the whole world, but the majority feels like he did do it. And the state of Nevada kind of finished it off for everybody. The lady judge here in town did a tremendous thing as far as, so they call it a public service, getting him off. I don't know how long they're going to keep him. It was like from 10 to 33 years or something, the sentences. It had a big, short and long period to it. And I don't know. They'll keep him though as long as they can possibly keep him. They'd rather see him never walk the street again.
You're listening to the EOG Sports Hour. John Kelly with Mike Corrigan talking sports, and we'll get back to sports betting. I want to ask Mike about the wise guys and how what he's learned about the wise guys this past weekend.
Well, it wasn't just this past weekend, but I just saw it really on exhibition the last. It's not like I haven't been around. By the way, it looks like Arizona's going to win by 1. They're running the clock out. They're going to be knee bending here shortly. They're going to be an 18-17 winner, and that's only good if you have teasers. John, I've been around for a long time. I've been around was around when Bob Martin was alive. I met him, didn't know him at all, intimately at all. And I've been around Jimmy Vaccaro and some good handicappers, and they've always been very skilled people. But ever since, I don't know if it was the start when Billy Walters came onto the scene or not, because or computer people or whatever. But it's a business that the bettor is a lot better at now than he ever was 20, 30 years ago. And there's so many different bets out there, which you would think is normally good for a bookmaker, the more the merrier. But when you get into the halftimes and quarter bets and the totals on the halftime, and if you don't watch what you're doing, you better be sharp, because they do have the information. And John, are you familiar at all with, I don't know if this is the right expression, about when you call a sports book in the offshore, they put you on what they call a hold, if you're considered a wise guy,
right?
And they're anywhere from 5 to 20 seconds, while they upgrade their line and make sure that you're going to be taking the worst of it. Because what's happened is that the guys are so sharp, they're getting line changes before the bookmakers do. And that's always been a no-no. The bookmakers are supposed to be the geniuses, supposedly. But they've just gotten so good at it. And guys, movers of money and movers for organizations and betting combines and so forth, they're so good at it, they had to resort to fixing their software in these places out of the country to put a delay on the betting line in order to kind of slow things down a little bit. They instead of taking, because they would the wise guy would come in and lay 2, and the game had already gone to 3, and he was laying 2, and the bookmaker didn't have the changes yet, so they were always taking the best of it. That doesn't make you a winner, but I know a lot of people that would kill for half point and a point in this world, especially professionals, and they're just really good at it. I'm very impressed. I usually land on the side of the house in these deals, but I'm impressed about just how good they are at it, and it's a lot tougher business. Your net bottom line is a lot tougher to make money now at this business than it was, say, 20 years ago, or when Jimmy was over at the Mirage. He had to put out an early line on Sunday nights. That's what he had to worry about, and he let what's his name would play 5-10 dives a game, and he would use him as a guideline, and that was all he really had to think about on a Sunday night. Now you got to really be careful, because Sunday night. Who's the first line out with? Is it Chris?
Yeah, Chris puts the first, I think, legitimate line out. There are others, though. Bet Online tries to come up first, but their limits are very low, 250, 500.
And Chris is always going to take a couple of dimes at a minimum, I'm sure, because they pick up steam every day. They keep increasing the limits, and I'm very impressed with their organization. I hate to keep saying that every time I'm on the show, but they really are a well-oiled machine.
Johnny Avello at Wynn tries to be up first, I think, on a Sunday afternoon for the college numbers. It's tough. One thing about the internet world and the software capabilities of the offshore sports books is that it's much easier to profile the winners. You know who's winning, you know who's losing, and from what I've seen in my trips to Costa Rica, Mike, sitting on a stage where the bets are coming in, oftentimes there's that special list of guys who do win consistently, and the bigger sports books have them separated from the rest.
Yes, they do. They're a special group. They even have line makers, or they call them. There's a word for it that they sit like you say, they sit up on top there and oversee the operation. They got a special group at Chris. I know that is just designated. There's like 5 guys working at once that just to handle wise guy play, because it's so sharp. They have to, and they're booking like literally hundreds of thousands of dollars a day. They have to protect themselves, and they're very good at it. But even then, there's slips in the crack, and I see. Speaking of that, a teaser bet used to be considered kind of a sucker bet, but I noticed everybody's using 12 to 10 for 6-point teasers, and I know of a couple places 11 to 10, but boy, it's pretty rare now. I don't think you're a teaser bettor, are you, John?
Used to be more.
NFL teasers as well.
Yeah, more. Of course, more then than now, only because of the price change, and I think it's a little tougher than most people think. Also, one thing about teaser betting is that once you go there, it's hard to come back. Nothing ever looks good at 11 to 10 after you make some 6-point teasers. It's funny how that works. You're looking for the crutch all the time.
Yeah, especially if you're keying off key numbers, and you're getting 15 points or something from a 9 to up to a 6-point teaser up to a 15 or something, where 2 touchdowns doesn't beat you. But the teaser business is for the player in the NFL, not college. Bookmakers are not afraid of college teasers whatsoever. They'll take anything you like because they have a lot of blowout games. But these NFL lines can be so tight that they can have bad days, and both sides win every bet.
There was a point on Sunday, Mike. There were 10 games going simultaneously. There was a point in the fourth quarter of all 10 games. I think 7 of the 10 games were one-possession games. I mean, it was just that close. The NFL is so regulated, too, in terms of how they play the game. It's really formulaic. It's funny how it works when a team gets up 2 possessions, how they then change their play calling and work on the clock a little bit more than they've done in the past.
Yeah, unlike the college where they want to win by 60.
And they can win by 62.
And they do, and they just run it up on poor Nickel State and all that,
Yeah, there are class mismatches, whereas in the NFL, especially division games, you got to play them twice. The Steelers yesterday opened up a 27-3 lead over the Browns, fell asleep
and ended up in overtime, right?
Was it overtime or did?
Well, I think they won by 3, didn't they?
They won by 3 at the gun, I believe.
I didn't. Maybe it was at the gun. Okay, but they blowed a big lead there, and I didn't even look at the stats. How did the kid do from Texas A&M?
Did not play. Brian Hoyer
at
took
all?
all the snaps. Not at all.
Why is that?
They had named Hoyer the first stringer and Manziel the backup.
Even when they were way down?
The head coach thought about it at the half, he said, after the game, but decided to stick with Hoyer.
If the game was in Pittsburgh?
Yes.
If this game had been in Cleveland, you'd have heard some noise. You'd have heard a lot of noise.
Yeah.
And you know what you're going to hear. It's the home folk don't like that. So whatever.
There was a backup quarterback who did not fare well yesterday. That was Sean Hill. He left in the second quarter of a blowout loss to the Vikings, quad strain. Austin Davis was forced to be the quarterback for the St. Louis Rams. That brings us to our Friday night competition between Computer Bob and Railbird. Birdie is in these head-to-head matchups, and for the last year or so, he doesn't lose when he goes head-to-head with members of our EOG community. This was his 12th straight victory. Computer Bob was the victim. Bob did a valiant job, put up a valiant effort, I should say. 5 wins, 2 losses from his 7 selections. One
is fabulous, and still didn't get the money.
Still didn't get the money. One of the 2 losses, too, Mike, was Michigan State plus 13, and at one point, he looked like he was home free in that game, catching 13, but in the end, Oregon scored the final 28 points of the game to win 46-29.
Unmerciful, and of course it was televised here locally, and I saw every bit of it. And personally, I needed Michigan State, and I thought I was sitting in tremendous shape. I didn't get to the late third quarter. I got the lead straight up. And, boy, they did. But Oregon just does it so fast. There's no huddle. They run a million plays. They never let up. And then even at the end, they actually disdained a field goal. I think the game would have landed. It seemed like there was because of a penalty. They went and got a 10-yard run, a touchdown instead. And this is Chip's team too, right? So
Chip's team, of course, he's not there anymore, but Scott Frost is the offensive coordinator, and he paid Michigan State a compliment of sorts. He said it took us a while to break them. That's what Oregon does to opponents, just that relentless pressure. And, Mike, I think it's as much mental as it is physical, the idea that, they can score on just about any play they run. That pressure on the defense is just too much for some teams. Michigan State's a quality defense, too. They had some losses to graduation and such, but
right, they're not near as good as they were, but they rolled out to a fair sized lead plus the point spread, and you think you were getting catch a ticket, but here come the Ducks, and they just roared in there, kind of like the Eagles did in the next day. Did you say that? Railbird, was he 6-1?
6-1, and
that poor guy's 5-2. The other gentleman.
Yep.
And here I'm thinking about trying to take this guy on. I may look at my whole card again here because I really would like to. I like to spring the upset anyway if I can possibly do it.
Well, and you were looking for added money, I believe. You wanted to extend those limits a bit. Do we go from anywhere between?
Yeah, I see. I'm not. I'd like to do that, but I think I'm going to need a couple of weeks warming up to the bullpen and wait for some of my college experts to get out of prison so I can get some updates from them.
Very well. And we'll do it maybe in October sometime. I know this coming Friday, Looker will be the opponent for Railbird. The following Friday, Paulie Mack, who was on the program, went 5-0 with his college football plays, 1-4 with the NFL plays, but still 6-4 from 10 selections. He was a star last Saturday, was it, or 2 Saturdays back, when he went 5-0, but struggled in week 1 of the NFL. That'll happen to even the smartest guys. So Paulie Mack will be here a week from this Friday, and then WVU will be a contestant Friday night in September, and we'll begin the first Friday in October with Hustle Double, who, by the way, is our contestant in EOG's Grand Challenge. Hustle Double correctly selected the under in tonight's Arizona-San Diego game, safely under the total. Back to Railbird, though, Mike. Birdie went 6-1. One of his NFL plays yesterday was the Vikings over the Rams, 34-6 final. And today, he liked Detroit -6.5. He was probably scratching his head at the line move earlier today. That number dipped to 4.5 in some spots, and then the money came again for the Lions. That was a weird...
I think it ended up two-way action, John. I think you're right. It did swing up and down like a yo-yo, which in the NFL it usually doesn't move. Although the Denver game actually went... The Denver game actually opened 6.5. The come-out number last Sunday.
And how high a number did you see on the Broncos?
I saw 9.5 also.
And you had a story on that game.
Well, the story is this. I examined, let's call it some paperwork that belongs to a sports book, that every bet they had probably... I don't know. They probably had 1,000 people that bet the game in some form or another, and they didn't all 1,000 have the winner. But I'm telling you, just to show you how astute these people are, there was a guy that bought it from 7.5, bought a full point down to 6.5. A bunch of them laid it down to 7, so they got off the hook, and then everybody else was taking anywhere from 8 to 9.5. And then in the total, that was a bit of a problem, too. It ranged in the 53-55 range, didn't it? And it fell right in there, too.
It did. I saw, in fact, close to game time, I saw Chris had a total of 53, while the South Point simultaneously had the total at 55. And I've always felt like when the offshores are one way and Vegas is another, oftentimes it's the offshores that are right. I'm not going to say 60-40, but I'd say close.
I think they're right more so not all. I have a lot of respect for Jimmy at South Point, and I don't know who does his line. I really don't know. Whether it's Russ, I don't know who does their line, but I saw some 50. I saw 55 in an offshore place too.
I was with Ron Boyles yesterday. He said if ever you want to take advantage of the Vegas books, oftentimes on a Sunday night or Monday night game, those games are usually in the total priced at a point and a half higher than most other places.
Well, yeah, that's true. The Sunday night game, you mean?
Yeah, Sunday night.
Well, it's the last game of the week, and everybody that's stuck gravitates towards the chalk normally, what I call the 80% club. And, they just do. And especially when stuck, people just have a tendency to lay it, and the point spread consequently goes up. So here we got Denver all the way up to 9.5. And really, when it was 31-7 at one point?
Yeah, I know it was 24-7 at the half.
I think it got to 31, John.
Yeah,
and then they kicked a field goal, made it... No, you know what? I could be wrong on it. Could have made it was 24-7.
Yeah.
Now I can't remember, but they had a substantial lead in the game, and you could see the 7 coming down the pipe at the end too.
Yeah,
and that's the greatest fear of the bookmaker is that number landing too close to the area where there's been a lot of volatile movement. And this was a very bad game for one outfit I know. They did have a big winning week, though, for the week. Not quite as good as the one you mentioned earlier, but it was a strong week, and so they got off to a good start. When all those dogs win in the NFL on Sunday morning, I mean, the chase is really on, and having two games at 125 to shoot at, it didn't give them a lot of artillery either. Both favorites did win in the afternoon games. But usually there's at least 4 games. Don't they usually have at least 4?
Typically, yes. I wouldn't say at least 4 because I think 4 is the most. Although I've seen 5 late afternoon. Yeah,
well, there's at least 3, but more towards 4. And I think I agree with you on. I don't know. Have a balanced amount of games the morning and afternoon.
Yeah, it's overkill at the between 12:45 and 1:15 here in the West just to watch all the action. It's hard to do. To set the record straight, Indianapolis scored first in the second half. It was 24-7 at the half. Indy scored the only points of the third quarter, the field goal that made it 24-10. It made it a 2-possession game, but then Denver opened up to 31-10. That was the 21-point lead.
Okay, maybe I'm saying, okay.
And then Indy scored the last 2 touchdowns of the game. That Andrew Luck, he can rally from behind, can he not?
Yes, he can. It seems like he's just more comfortable doing it that way. And Peyton's always been a front runner. He's always done well to be on the front end. He's not a huge come from. Oh, he's had his come from behind performances also. I shouldn't say that. But Andrew Luck is really notorious for this.
I'll tell you a star quarterback who struggled yesterday, especially in the second half. Tom Brady looked good in the first half. Patriots lead the Dolphins 20-10 at the break. But in the second half, it was all Miami. They scored 23 unanswered. And that division is interesting. We mentioned how the Eagles are 1-0 and the rest of the NFC East is 0-1. Mike, AFC East teams, Dolphins, Bills, and Jets are all 1-0, and it's the Patriots who are 0-1.
Yeah, but that'll stun a few people, and I'm sure that the Patriots didn't figure they were going to lose. They had a pretty good lead in the game early. I think it was double digits during the first half. Mm-hmm. It looked like they were on their way, and once they get you by the throat, they don't usually let you up either.
No, big win for Miami. They're at home, and we'll see how the rest of the season plays out for the Dolphins. I mentioned the Lions win today. I thought they were impressive. Matthew Stafford, he looked a lot more athletic than he did last season. Detroit has an edge in that division because their 2 main rivals, the Packers and Bears, both lost to start the season 0-1. I mentioned Minnie's victory on the road in St. Louis, 34-6 over the Rams, although the Vikings aren't expected to be too much this season. The Lions last season, you'll remember, 6-3, and it looked like they were headed to the postseason when they lost.
And then they just collapsed. Is that why the coaches no longer win the movie?
Correct. Lost 6 of 7 to end the season.
And then they hired Caldwell?
Yeah, Schwartz out, Caldwell in. And in 6 of those 6 losses at the end of the year for the Lions, they had the lead in every game in the fourth quarter in blue. So
I could see the frustration of ownership and management there. With that, somebody's going to have to pay the piper, and it'll be the head coach and whatever. And well, Caldwell got off to a good start then. Detroit looks like they're probably playing a stiff tonight, but they did look good.
Mm-hmm. They did. And I mentioned Mr. Bowling 300 at the doubleheader, the Tigers in the daytime, the Lions in the nighttime. Also want to mention EOG contributor Blue Line. We've got a growing community at EOG. The smart, sophisticated guys are there. Blue Line posted today 2015 Major League Baseball schedule. It's been released. Sunday, April 5th will be the first game in 2015. And then here's something I like with the schedule. One game goes on Sunday night. It'll be the ESPN game. But then all 28 teams wheel back, or I should say play on Monday, April 6th.
That's the first.
Yeah, it's instead of having it spread out.
Yeah, they usually got it spread out
over a couple days.
Eternity.
Yeah, we get to see.
They're all going to play the next day, huh?
Yeah.
That schedule's out already, the baseball?
It is. The 2015 MLB schedule.
I'm looking at the standings right now for the current, just because there's been some just massive happenings in baseball between the St. Louis Cardinals and the Angels, and they have just absolutely shredded their divisions now.
Yeah.
And Billy Beane at Oakland, and I have a lot of respect for him. He makes this trade with the Red Sox, which I thought was... I know they gave up the left fielder, but I still thought they were getting this quality left-hander. And he hasn't exactly disappointed them, by the way. They've just been lows in there, and the Angels just refuse to lose.
Angels lead the A's by 8 games in the AL West.
It's a wrap.
Yeah, if you haven't...
Seattle just won their game up tonight. They won again, so let me see, what does that do? That... changes the picture there. Seattle, I think they're within. Oakland got beat again, so they're within a half a game of Oakland.
And one of the 3 teams, Oakland. Well, actually,
all 3 can come to the playoffs.
Yeah, because Kansas City could back up, right?
Kansas City wins, say, and Detroit would be the one out.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a battle for. Well, Detroit's in like you said, a double battle for. They're only a game out of first.
Yeah, 2 ways to make it. Whereas Oakland, Seattle they don't have that division option with the Angels hiding in first. And what's interesting about Detroit? They've got the last 3 American League Cy Young Award winners and the last 3 American League MVPs, and they could be on the outside looking in.
Yeah, absolutely.
5 minutes remaining in the program, Mike. We'll take a 1-minute timeout. When we return, we'll get to selections. I'll find out who you like in tomorrow's Major League Baseball action. I've got 3 plays for tomorrow and 1 selection from our good friend Bobby Begtol, Bobby the Owl. He's a little bit under the weather, won't make an appearance on the radio this week, so get well soon, Bobby, but he did pass along his best bet for college football on Saturday. Swing and a miss for Bobby the last week. That doesn't happen very often to him, but maybe we'll try to rally back and get a winner for Bobby this Saturday. You're listening to the EOG Sports Hour.
There's no such thing as a sure thing, unless you're talking about Ion Gaming. Ion Gaming is a website dedicated to the hearts and minds of sports bettors everywhere. If you're looking for smart, sophisticated sports handicapping information and insight,
Go to EOG.com.
if you're looking for the latest news on the ever-changing landscape of Nevada's race and sportsbook industry,
Go to EOG.com.
if you're looking for the most recent developments involving the worldwide sports betting scene with an emphasis on the leading sports books in San Jose, Costa Rica,
Go to EOG.com.
and finally, if you're looking to join an online community of sports gamblers where registration is free and the information is priceless,
Go to EOG.com.
you get the idea. Why gamble on other sports betting websites when Ion Gaming is a sure thing?
And I love a sure thing.
Time now for the JK Play of the Day. This is John Kelly's single strongest recommendation against the current numbers at the M Resort here in Las Vegas.
Three plays, and I'll go quickly. First, to college football. Let's take an early lead on the game between Oklahoma and Tennessee. I like betting number 186, Oklahoma minus 20.5. Watched Oklahoma each of the first 2 weeks. They were up 21-0 in the first quarter of each of their last 2 games. Now, granted, they weren't playing much. But Tennessee, though 2-0 on the season, I'm not that impressed with their performances. Last week against Arkansas State, they won but did not cover. And the first week, we remember they beat Utah State, but a lot of money came against Tennessee in the marketplace. Not sure if that was betting on Utah State or fading Tennessee. Either way, I like Oklahoma at home to rout Tennessee. I like the fact they get off to quick starts in their contests. So Oklahoma to beat Tennessee by 3 touchdowns or more. Baseball, game 9:29, 9:30. Cubs playing the Blue Jays at the Rogers Center in Toronto. Arrieta against Burley. I'll go under the total of 8. Jake Arrieta, sneaky good for the Cubs. I keep mentioning Kyle Hendricks, the Cubs pitcher. I like what Arrieta's done lately. And Burley, we know about his pace. The Cubs playing without Rizzo. Sure. Cubs playing without Castro. No Rizzo, no Castro. Not much offense. They failed to score tonight, and they might not score against Burley and company tomorrow. So Blue Jays and Cubs under the total of 8. Now we're seeing some dead teams. We're seeing some prices in the marketplace that are really high. We saw King Felix tonight priced in the $3 range. Kershaw he touched $4 at South Point. He was a minus.
I'm looking at some overnights here that are high for tomorrow that are just because the teams they're playing have spit it out so bad. And the pick that I have, I'm just going to stay with a hot team, the St. Louis Cardinals with Michael Wacha pitching. He's back in form. And Cincinnati has spit it out awful, and they got two couple of players out of their lineup too, and they're dead. So anyway, I'll go with the Cardinals over Cincinnati.
Betting number 905, St. Louis minus $1.30 or thereabouts over Cincinnati. Let me sneak in a basketball play in the WNBA game 2 of the best of 5 WNBA finals. I like over the total of 154.5. Brittany Griner set the tone last game. She had a lot of block shots against the Chicago Sky in the first quarter, no less. And the Sky managed only 20 first-half points. I think they'll score a lot more than that tomorrow night, over 154.5. And the football game that Bobby the Owl likes, he likes Georgia -6. I'll have more on that play tomorrow. We'll give you the reasons why Bobby likes Georgia -6 on the road against South Carolina. Alan Dinkinson, Las Vegas-based sports betting pro, to join me on tomorrow's program. Thanks for listening.